what the benefits are gonna be to us and how we can share them. You know, I'll share this, I'll be kind of brief on this, but it's hard for me to be brief on anything without sharing. The one thing that I know is the Narcotics Anonymous program has taught me how to look myself in the eye and not lie. Okay, so I like being very blunt with y'all on what the addiction did to me. And there's a book here, it's called Narcotics Anonymous, It Works, How and Why. Now I'm going to share from this book a lot, but I'm also going to share with you what it showed me as a young man. My first drug was alcohol. And that was at 7 years old. I promoted it to marijuana when I was 11. Started taking pharmaceutical pills when I was 13. And then I met this real bad girl named Cocaine. Okay, when I was 15 years old. And she was an evil little girl that I fell in love with. Okay, that was what my addiction did to me as a kid. You know, my mother took me to the treatment center when I was 14 years old. It was called the DAD, Alma Drug Release Program. And I've even showed it a couple of times. I made the cover of Screen magazine when I was 14 years old in the treatment center. And it's amazing, you know, here's one thing I know. I had a sponsor a couple of years ago tell me, he said, Dwayne, you know, I blame my mother for my addiction my whole life, okay? Because I was raised around alcoholics. I never had a dad. I don't know what being a father is, because I never had one. I know what it's like to have my mom's boyfriend, you know, tell me what to do, get out of the house, take me anywhere I need to go to get me out of the house in 4 hours. So I grew up with my life like that. So, I mean, I like to be kind of blunt about what we do as parents. How many of y'all are parents? Okay. How many of y'all have a relationship with your kids still and you're trying to reestablish them? Hey, and there's no, and the reason why I'm blunt with that question, there's a lot of people at the NA program that are working the steps, getting the sponsor, going to group to reestablish that relationship with their wife, their mom, their dad, their grandma, their grandpa, everybody. Because when you've been an addict like I've been for as many years as I was an addict, not too many people like me in my family. They put up with me, but they didn't like me. But the good news is once we get in this program, and here's the real good. How many of y'all drove your own car to Homeward Bound that's sitting in the parking lot right now? How many of you have your car in the parking lot Homeward Bound? That's what that addiction takes us. It takes our vehicle, our life, our freedom. Everything that we work so hard for, we lose because we chose addiction over it. You know, and I'm one thing about Dwayne, you may be upset with me, but I'm going to be very blunt with you. I want you to never forget what that old man said, okay? You know, just say, you know, I've been there for a minute, so I kind of repeat what I say a lot. But one thing I can tell you is this: when I decided on October 17th of 2021, I said, man, I said, God, don't let no judge, jury, parole officer, or probation officer tell me to get in recovery again. They put that leg monitor on my leg. That was one of the best treatments in the I ever went to. And when I got that leg monitor on my leg, I started going to NA on Monday. I can only move out of the house on Monday between 8 and 12, 8 and 5, excuse me. So I went to the new meeting there, and I started meeting people at NA that were real good people. And guess what? Everybody that was speaking in that room understood every word that they were saying. You know, it's amazing. When we become addicts, we understand what the person next to us is saying. But when we get into recovery, that's when we got to pay attention to those people at NA. Pay attention to those people at your church. Pay attention to those people at your home when they're telling you the steps that you need to take. And I'm kind of jumping out there, but one thing I can tell you is this. It took me until I was 59 years old before I finally settled down, okay? Before I finally, my higher power is God. And that's when I was able to start talking to him at night. You know, for me, and I'm speaking for myself, for me saying that little 2-minute prayer at night, and boy, when my alarm goes off in the morning, I get to thank God for that alarm going off, me waking up. Because look, we are all, how many of y'all, and I'm kind of blushing, how many of y'all have overdosed and had to get taken to a hospital? How many of y'all had to have Narcan shot up your nose? Boy, it's funny how that Narcan That's a life-saving drug right there. It's a shame, but it's the reality. You know, I'll share this. About 7 years ago, I was highly addicted to methamphetamine, and my girlfriend was addicted to heroin. And guess what? I said, baby, put me a couple of drops in there. And guess what? She put too many drops in there, and I overdosed in my house. And guess what? The people in my house, you know what they did? They called 911, but they just left the front door open and left.
That's what they do.
Okay? So the police got me, the ambulance got there, and they put me in the ambulance, and guess what? I became conscious in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. What happened? Wait, Mr. Frank said, we just brought you back to life. I said, what are you talking about? He said, we put that Narcan up your nose and you came back to life. I overdosed. So I'm very blunt about what I say, but I want y'all to just know, there's not one person in any of these chairs that's any different than the person sitting next to them or behind them.
Right.
You can't hold judgment on anybody. You can't hold resentments. That's part of our steps in NA, is we have to make a list of all the people we harm that became willing to make amends to them all. Okay? When we get to that point, I promise you, it's amazing the things that we can achieve in a very short period of time when we establish recovery. And this is what I blame my mother for my addiction for many, many years. Okay? Because, you know, she got divorced 90 days after I was born, and she never remarried. The last name that I carry is not my real last name. I didn't find out until I was 23 who my real father was. I've got a half sister that's 2 weeks older than me. Same dad, different mom. I met her when I was 38 years old. So I had a lot of resentments. But this is what a sponsor told me. He says, Dwayne, how long have you known you're an addict? I said, well, I've been the cover of Restream magazine when I was 14 years old in the treatment center. He says, from that day on, you can never blame your mother for your addiction. When we become aware of our addiction, it's up to us to go to a group. Whatever 12-step program you go to is your choice. The one that worked for me is NA. Okay, I've been to AA since I was a kid. And AA is a good program, don't get me wrong. But AA is about alcohol. Alcohol had just introduced me to all these other drugs that never went away. The amazing addiction that we have on all these different components is what really needs us to the penitentiary. Has anybody ever been incarcerated? Is anybody on probation? Is anybody on parole? I was on parole and on probation when I got into NA this time. And guess what? You know, I'm a convict, okay? I've been in prison since 1984. I've even been in prison or on parole. When I kind of repeat myself, a lot of people hear me talk about this a lot. But you know, the good news is the faces here at the church, yes, I see them every week. But I see new faces as patients. Okay, so that's what we do at NA. We want to make sure that that person that comes in just for today is going to come in for just for tomorrow, just for the next day, the next day, the next day. Repetition strengthens and confirms. Everything that we do bad, the more we do it, we know it's bad. Everything that we do good, we know it's good the more we do it. And I say that because, you know, it took me until I was 59 years old. If there's a lot of people in here that are under, how many of y'all are under the age of 30? Okay, we got some youngsters in here tonight. Because usually most treatment centers I go to, and I say that, we're gonna have 50 people in there, only 2 people will raise their hand. But then I'll say, how many of y'all are under the age of 40? We might get 6 people. How many of y'all are age of, under 50? Okay. Then how many of y'all are over 50? So it takes us so long before we do when we want to do the right thing. And then I'm going to read this from you. It's called the NA, It Works Out in Life. I'm going to read the introduction to you. And this is just I've had this book for a minute. Dwayne has a terrible way of keeping up with books. There's my sponsor right there. So I'm talking to the group, I'm talking to my sponsor too. So I won't be on the hit list next week. We've got things for me to do. But that's good news. That's, I'm gonna read this here. This is the introduction. Welcome. The book you have in your hands is a discussion of the 12 steps and 12 traditions of Narcotics Anonymous. We realize that whether written or verbal, no discussion of something as personal and individual as recovery can be all things to all people. This book is not meant to be an exhaustive study of NA steps or traditions, nor is it meant to be the final word on any aspect of recovery or NA unity. Rather, it is meant to help you determine your own interpretation of the principles contained in the steps of the traditions. We hope you will find personal growth, understanding, and empathy in the following pages. We pray you will be moved to a new level of insight in your recovery and the valuable place you occupy as a member of the Narcotics Anonymous program. Okay, and I gotta ask y'all this. I asked y'all how many of y'all had your car in the parking lot at Homeward Bound? How many of y'all volunteered to go to Homeward Bound? How many were sent there by the probation officer or your family? Okay, I mean, that's just the reality. You know, we have so many different events. But the good news about Homeward Bound, you know, how many of y'all went in there and had to do detox for 5 days? There we go. Alcohol or you know, no matter what it is. You know, here's the real kicker people don't realize. More people die from overdosing on alcohol and the detox off of alcohol than heroin. You would believe the amount of people that have an intoxicated manslaughter where they run over and kill somebody and, you know, being on alcohol, then they had to go to detox for 5 days and then they got $150,000 bond and they're swearing they're never going to do it again. Intoxicated manslaughter, folks, is what this addiction does to us. It don't matter what drug you're on. It doesn't matter how many you take, how much you drink. You know, whatever your intentions are. Essentially, you know, here's the real reality. When I first started doing drugs, I felt real good for 5 minutes. But I went through 5 years in the penitentiary for all the stupid stuff that I did for that 5-minute high. You know, I would commit felonies to go get high again. My whole life. You know, and I'll say this, I'm no rich person, but this program and my higher power has made me spiritually wealthy. Okay, that's a key word. Spiritually wealthy. I can never be a pastor at a church. Okay, but guess what? I can go share my experience with the hope in any penitentiary or any patient treatment center. I'm not bragging one bit on this too, but here's the good news. I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous, H&I, okay? Hospitals and institutions. Well, guess what? I met these characters here at the Overcomers at the Johnston Unit out in East Texas. And we were having a great day, and I got to hear Carl sing, and I got up there and thought I was a poet, and we just had a great time. And then Carl came up to me after the group and said, "Boy, you ought to come to Overcomers one night." Well, guess what? In September, it was 2 years ago. I come here on Monday night. I live in Garland. It's 37 miles from my driveway to y'all's driveway here. But I tell you what, I have been blessed so much for looking at these patients in the eye. Because guess what? I've been to Homeward Bound several times. Guess what? I never graduated from Homeward Bound. Here's the kick. I'm going to share this with you. This is just the reality of how bad of an handicap was. My mother took me to Homeward Bound. Okay, I had a mom that's full of shit. Excuse my language. Okay, but she took me to Homeward Bound, and they put me in detox. And I said, "I was going to do a detox for 3 days." I said, "Well, okay." And guess what? Detox was no cigarette even. Oh my gosh! Back then you couldn't even smoke. So here I am, 3 days, and boy, when they let me out that door and go smoke a cigarette, I said, "How bad of an handicap was it all?" We were in that place in Oak Cliff by Republic Bank, the old building. Y'all saying it's not y'all, or y'all stole whatever, it's not there. It's not part of the program. But they took me down that stairwell, and I'm standing down there, and I'm in my boxer shorts, okay? My boxer shorts. And guess what? I smoked that cigarette, I said, "I'm gonna smoke one more." Oh, you only get one cigarette. So I flicked that cigarette on the gun, I took off running. And I left home with that in my boxer shorts. I went to a thrift store down there and claimed to wash the windows at the thrift store and they give me a pair of pants. That's what I did, man. And guess what? That thrift store closed me. I washed the windows, cleaned the bathroom, cleaned up that whole little thrift store. They even gave me $20 and some clothes for all the work I did. So here I went, right back in my full-blown addiction to marijuana. Well, the next day, here's a picture, y'all. This is an addict that's sitting in this chair. They used to be sitting in that chair. Just know, I've been sitting in the chair that you're sitting in. Okay, and I like sharing this very bluntly. I called my mother on the phone. Mom, and they called you yet? I left the treatment center. I know they called me yesterday when you left. I said, Mom, can you Western Union me $20 so I can take the bus home? I'm not Western Union one dime. He said, go back to that treatment center. I brought you all your clothes, a carton of cigarettes, and there's $40 in that case that I bought. So here I go back to Homeward Bound and got my little case with a carton of cigarettes, money, and clothes. But guess what? I stayed in Oak Cliff for another week. You know, I'm telling you, we are the people. When we get to treatment, we're on Skid Row before we get there. I was. I'm sorry. Don't get up. Boy, they tell me all the time, stop using the word we, it's you. And that's me. And so, you know, I'm kind of different than most people that come up here, sure. But guess the good news is this. When you come to an NA meeting, you're going to see a lot of characters like me. And guess what? Hopefully one of them is going to say, you know what? Hey man, can I get your phone number? Hey man, can you get around? Hey man, I haven't got to eat lunch all day. Is it possible we can go at the end group, we know you're for real. We're gonna make sure you don't go home hungry. We're gonna get you home. We're gonna tell you what bus you need to get on to get back to group in the morning. Or call one. Hey, you need the list. I go to the town east NA is my home. Okay, it's over there in the ski. But guess what? I go to the north side, east side. I've been to Duncanville a few times. We even went to the Garland NA last night. You know what we do at the county school on Thursday night? We go to other county, other NA groups and steal the banners off the wall. Okay? And come and put them on all. It's called the banner blast. There's got to be 5 of us from our group. We go there together. We have to go to show up at group on time, set their group, and then after group, we pick out what banner we want off the wall. And I tell you what, he knows. That's a big event right there. Because we can come out and I'm gonna come to challenge and start snatching our banners. But you know, it's amazing when we start doing simple things, we have big results. You know, and y'all just may not know. Okay, I'm gonna share this. Marijuana when I was alcohol when I was 7, marijuana when I was 11, taking pills when I was 13, doing cocaine when I was 15, and guess what? I was doing that stuff in my arm when I was 18 years old, and that never went away. If you saw my arms, I'm not gonna show them to you, I'm not really getting in depth about that, but guess what? And y'all ever heard of the people scrap yard? We buy all the used parts for your car? That's what my arms look like. All the scars and damage that I did to my body for 59 years. And guess what? Here's the reality of all. My mother, when I caught her in that lie when I was 23 years old, on what my real last name was, my father lived 3 miles from my house. I never met him until I was 23 years old. My grandmother lives a half mile from my house. She's dead now. I never met her. Went to school with my 2 blood cousins. And I caught my mother in a full-blown lie when I was 23 years old. But guess what? She spent the rest of her life spoiling me rotten, making amends to me, reminding me about God. I never had a dad, so I don't know how to be a dad. I have a daughter who's 38 years old, but I was incarcerated the first 16 years of her life in and out of the penitentiary. So she never really got to I never got to really meet her as a real dad. Just what she saw on my book and letter that you pull off the internet, that's how she saw her dad. Was when they would go online and her mother would show a picture of that. And here's the kicker. Whenever Dwayne went to the penitentiary, I always had a place to go to, y'all. Whenever I went to any treatment center, I would be very well taken care of. I had a place to go to when I got out. And the reason why I'm saying that to y'all is how many of y'all got a place to live when y'all get out of treatment? That's a good hand, that's a good hand up. And here's another thing too. Speak to me. Because guess what? I know of places that will accept people getting out of recovery, getting out of treatment. I can get you a place to live for $105 a week or $400 a month, or you can go to the Oxford House and pay anywhere between $160 and $180 a week. Okay, that's what their payment is there. That's a category that you're gonna have to establish with your counselor, and home about. Because guess what? One thing about when we're in treatment, how many, and I see all the people that got adjustment today and the 30 days, and guess what? That 30-day chip, that's a bad man jam. Okay, because now the decision making is on this side of the road. Okay, once you get that 30-day chip, you got, I want to be 31. And then the next, one day at a time, y'all. We can't live. Here's one thing I know. I go to NA with people who got 25, 35, 40 years of recovery. But guess what? They're going to tell you the most important person in that room is the one that got the just for today chip. The one that's sharing what got him there today. Okay? I promise you, man, you're going to see some things that you're never going to forget. And what we try to do at the NA group that I go to, we want you to remember us. You may hate every word we say, but you're going to remember them. That's the good news. And some of y'all will say, I'm just being a little blunt with y'all. We got what? 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, 13, 17. We got 20 people in here. Okay? About 15% of the people in here are going to go to NA and they're going to stay in NA and they're going to work the steps. The other people in here, I'm going to see you at Center for Salvation Army or another treatment center. I see that. So, and I'm being blunt with you because, man, you can be part of that 15%, no matter where you sit. You can be a part of that 15%. And the fact of this is, we have to establish, right? I need to establish that excuse me. And I'm a rookie. I've only been in NA. Well, I started going in 2021. But I was only going once or twice a week. But now, for the last 2.5 years, Narcotics Anonymous is my home group. And I say that because I'm here on Monday night. I'm going to be at Hudson State Jail tomorrow night. He goes with me there. I love walking in the front door of the penitentiary and walking out the front door. Yeah. Look, I've been handcuffed to the fence at the diagnostic unit in Huntsville, Texas. When Dallas County would take us down there and there'd be 60 of us handcuffed to each other. The diagnostics would be so backlogged with all the inmates from being booked in back in the 80s. They would handcuff us to the fence and we'd sit there until Huntsville came out there and unbooked us and took us in. So, I mean, I know a little bit about being in the penitentiary. And, how many of y'all are still married in your relationship and with being in treatment? So yeah, I mean, y'all, so when you get out of treatment, you have a husband to go home to, right? Is he in recovery?
He's not an alcoholic or an addict.
Okay, cool. Because the reason why I say that is it's really important for us when we first get released from whatever treatment's going on. And it's better to be single. Okay? Because if you're not single, you're going to be a swindler. Okay? It's going to say, that rough ones. Hey. Believe me. When we're in our full-blown addiction, how many of y'all had a positive relationship in your full-blown addiction? There ain't no hands raising on it. It's amazing the people that we would meet in our addiction who we thought we were in love with for 20 minutes. We don't know how to do, one thing about NA, I'm kind of blunt about what I say. I'm going to have to ease up on this because I have me evicted. I can share this with you. When I got, I made that statement, God don't let no judge, jury, parole officer, probation officer, tell me to get in the country again. I've been to the penitentiary 4 times. I got 4 different TDC numbers. I got 3 safe P numbers. I got 3 state jail numbers. I was on parole and I got 4 possession cases between August of 2019 and October 17th of 2021. I got arrested 4 times for possession. But because of COVID, they let all parolees make bond because of the COVID was so bad. So here I am making bond, and I had a house, so I had good collateral, so I can make bond real easy. I have a house that I own. The kicker is, this is what happened. When I hit that 4th possession case, they didn't let me make bond. My parole officer came up to me and she says, Dwayne, you're not gonna get out of jail until you go to court and see what they're gonna give you for these 4 possession cases. Well, guess what? 3 days later, she came over and said, well, Mr. Franks, we're gonna have to release you because we can't, your blue warrant got lifted by Collin County. So we're gonna put a leg monitor on your leg, a GPS leg monitor, and we're gonna monitor you until you go to court. That's why I couldn't leave out of the house except on Monday between 8 and 5. I couldn't even check the mail at last. I couldn't go on the front porch. That's how stout that GPS monitor is. But here's the real kicker. I had a court-appointed attorney, and we showed up for court 3 times. And there's a judge, y'all probably all know her. Her name is Judge Gibbons. Okay, she's a big Dallas County judge, but she's a mean old judge. I showed up to court 3 times, and that prosecutor came out there and he said, "Well, Mr. Franks, I see that you've been here on time to go to court 3 times, and the judge hasn't been able to see you." He said, "Mr. Franks, I'm gonna offer you one deal one time, and you go sign for it right now if you want." He says, "Mr. Franks, we're offering you 5 years probation right now. I'm on parole. I've been to penitentiary 4 times, state jail 3 times, state PA 3 times. ISF, Booker's time. They gave me 5 years probation." Well, guess what? Me and the Town East group became real hometown. When I was on that probation, here's what the NA program did for me. Okay, and I'm not, look, I can do drugs and clean my urine and try to get a clean UA. Because what that is stop me from committing a felony. You can clean all the UAs you want, you still will commit a felony in school. That's what I did. But long story short, I got off of that GPS monitor and they put me in an IOP, intensive outpatient program. I had to be in downtown Dallas twice a week and do a 4-hour group twice a week. I did that for 6 months. It went to twice a week, no, 3 times a week, twice a week, and then 1 time a week for 6 months. When I got off of that, my probation officer really, she had very few people that graduated and completed that program without violating somehow. And so she put me in another program and another program. And I finished all that. I paid $120 a month to probation to pay for those 4 possession cases that I had in Garland. They had to pay back the bad work that they had done on all my arrests. Here's what NA did for me. Okay. I did 3.5 years on that 5-year probation I got. And the supervisor at the probation office on Jupiter Road came up to me. He says, "Well, Mr. Franks, I need you to write a letter to Judge Gibbons asking her to dismiss your case. You have no violations. You've done everything that you're supposed to do. But we're going to get you off of probation." Oh, and a little letter. Guess what? I mailed it to Judge Gibbons. And guess what? She denied it. She says, "Mr. Franks, you've been to prison 4 times. You've been to state jail 3 times. You're going to do this 5 years. The only way you can get off this probation is you $3,400 and something worth of court costs. You get those court costs paid, and we'll think about taking you off probation." I'm on disability from a motorcycle. I make a little money mowing yards. Okay, but I have a very limited income. But here's the kicker. Here's the real kicker right here. That happened in November of last year. Well, guess what? Judge Givens gave up her position as a judge because she went up against John Crusoe, the district attorney. And guess what? She beat Crusoe. Okay? And guess what? She had a little alternate judge in there doing all the work for her. And my lawyer called him, Frank, something good. And this is the day after Martin Luther King Day. Boy, you need to get down to court today. Because there's a Judge Lewis in Judge Gibbons' court. We're gonna present this to her. Guess what? I got that. Charlie Hunter, my attorney, he looked at the probation supervisor. And that probation supervisor was talking to that judge. She says, he has no violations, Your Honor. He's been on that probation for 3.5 years. And then the prosecutor looked at him and said, we can't believe he's still here. We didn't think we should have sent him to the penitentiary a couple of years ago. And then that lady looked at me and she says, well, Mr. Franks, I got one question for you. You've been paying $120 a month for 3.5 years. Yes, ma'am. How come you only paid $112 last month? I said, well, ma'am, I didn't have enough money on my debit card. It was only $6 short. She says, you're off probation, but you better get up to the 11th floor and pay that $6. I walked out of that courtroom off probation. Look, that's an accomplishment. When you've been in prison on parole, I'm about to cry like a little baby. And I've been in prison on parole since 1984. Now, I'm going to share something else with you. This is, I promise you, if you will work the steps, get a sponsor, go to group, do that 90 and 90 that H and I talks about every day. Okay? But here's the kicker. I went upstairs and paid that $6, but they charged me $3 for using my debit card. So I had to pay $9. So one part of me was wanting to be I'm telling you, man, I'm on probation. The good news about me being on probation, the Johnston unit's out in East Texas. And guess what? Judge Gibbons only let people on probation go to counties attached to Dallas County. You couldn't go to any county that was more than one county away on probation. My probation officer was letting me go to the Johnston unit, and she was writing the pass illegally. But she got caught on that, and she couldn't do that. That's why I couldn't go out to the Johnston unit with them no more. But here's the reality of what Narcotics Anonymous. I go to group. I'm at my group 4 or 5 times a week. I'm here on Monday night. I'm at the Hudson State Jail on Tuesday night. On Wednesday night, I'm at the Salvation Army. On the first and third Thursday, second and fourth Saturday, I'm at the Cedar Treatment Center out in Irving. Have any of y'all ever been to Cedar? Okay. I don't want none of y'all to say not yet. Okay. Work the program here, and you don't have to go to Center. You wouldn't believe the amount of people that I met right here at the dinner table that's at Salvation Army or at Center 3 or 4 months after they finish sheriff. Because they didn't work the center, they go to group, man. I know I'm kind of repeating myself a much, but repetition strengthens and confirms. Okay, everybody that was an addict, every time you did a bump, it meant you were a stronger addict than what you were. All right? Does everybody agree with me on that? When you would go into your grandmother's purse and take $100 out of it to go score, how many of y'all have done that? Be honest. How many of y'all stole from your family to go re-up? Okay, look, I did that my whole life, man. And guess what? We know. You know, the good news is when you look in the mirror, you can't go for yourself. You might be able to tell anybody that you know and you may think it's a lie, they know it's not, they know it's not the truth. You're not lying. They can tell by how we hold our head or how curly our hair is because we ain't had a bath in a week because of our addiction. You know, that's one thing that I'm very blunt about there too. How many of y'all appreciated that shower and them clean clothes when you got the treatment center? Okay. I know. Show me shut up, Spawn. But yeah, I'm saying all that because I'm gonna share this with you. My first time to the penitentiary was possession of cocaine and forgery and possession of a forged instrument driver's license. Okay. My second trip, I got out and stayed out 5 months. I went to the penitentiary the second time. for a credit card abuse and possession of a forged instrument driver's license. So I got 4 years that time. Well, when I got out that second time, I thought, you know what, I'm not coming back to Dallas. I had a homeboy of mine that worked for, I forget the name of the Highland Appliance. Okay, that was a company back in the 80s called Highland Appliance. And so he sent me down to Houston, Texas to work for Highland Appliance with him. Got me a great job, met my wife, had a kid, and my daughter didn't turn a year old and I was incarcerated again down in Harris County. And they got me for possession of cocaine. And this is what that judge said to me. This is funny, but this is the reality. He said, Mr. Franks, I see you've already been to the penitentiary 2 times. I said, yes, sir. He said, did you have a 3-year sentence the first time? I said, yes, sir. And you had a 4-year sentence the second time? Yes, sir. He says, what's 3 times 4? I sentenced you to 12 years. And so I went to the penitentiary in 1989. My daughter wasn't a year old, and here I had a 12-year sentence. And when I got out of the penitentiary that time, I came back to Dallas, and I did real good. You know, I was staying, my UAs weren't dirty, just know that. I wasn't staying, that's the kid. You know, I would E's and C's or whatever I needed to do. You know, there was a lot of crazy things you could do back in those days, you know, for a year. You know, I'm not even gonna get into all that. They don't work no more. Just know that. Technology is advanced far greater than what we thought we could get away with back then. In 1995, my wife, I've been married 3 times, y'all. I've never had a 1-year anniversary with my wife. I'd be incarcerated. I get served divorce papers in the penitentiary or in the county jail. But my wife told me, she said, boy, I love you to death, and my kids love you to death. But they know you're getting high to them. They know that you're gone every weekend. You know, she said, I want you to go this weekend, and I want you to go do all the stuff that you want to do. If this is your last weekend to do it with me, you know, go do it this weekend. Well, guess what? I left out of the house with $800 in my pocket. Now, on my way home, Monday morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I should have been home at 8 o'clock Sunday night, you know, but 2 o'clock in the morning, I drove through an apartment complex, and guess what? There was 3 rolls of copper hanging from the frame of this truck. I didn't have to break into the cab of the truck. I didn't have to break into the toolbox. I pulled my pocket knife out and cut the rope that was holding it onto that frame. And I put that 3rd roll of copper into my trunk of my car and shut the trunk. And guess what was sitting there? A bottle of sauce. Okay. Yeah, I almost go for him doing this when he let me go. Okay. He said, well, what's you doing get that done? I said, well, the owner of this company said, you get that done. And he said, well, what's his phone number? Look on the side of the truck, I recited in the phone number. There was an 817 phone number. That phone number was in Arlington. We had busted copper line. Now who's phone? I got copper. And this is what he told me. He said, oh, I'm good for it. This was on November 27th, 1995. Guess what? Now, on January 9th, I think, there was 3 people sitting in that courtroom, the captain, the lieutenant, and the guy who arrested him. And that judge was looking through this paperwork and he said, whoa, you've been to the penitentiary 3 times and you just stole 3 rolls of copper. He said, I'm going to sentence you to 10 years for each roll. I sentence you to 30 years in the penitentiary. Guess what? My wife divorced me. Okay. I lost our house. I lost everything. And here's the real kicker. I told you I committed that crime on November 27th, 1995. Well, on September 1st, 1996, guess what came into effect? The state jail felony, the 4th-degree felony. Well, guess what? If I had waited 11 months, the maximum punishment they could give me is 2 years. The minimum amount of punishment they could give me is 6 months. Unenhanced. You couldn't enhance the state jail felony the first 4 years it was out. And here I am down there doing 30 years. I fought that in the law library every day and I didn't win. okay? And I got out and I kept violating my parole in dirty ways and felonies. I lost 7 years of good time. I was supposed to be off parole on November 27th of 2025. Well, guess what? I don't get off parole until 2032. So that inspires me. You know, just, I'm telling you folks. How many of y'all have been to treatment more than once? Okay. How many of y'all have been to homeward bound more than once? Okay. Here's the good news about homeward bound. They're just like the penitentiary. They're gonna open the door for you. Okay. Homeward bound is just like the penitentiary. The only two companies that are never gonna go out of business in Dallas County is Frank Crowley Courthouse, the jail, and Parkland Hospital.
Right.
You know, Parkland Hospital, any of y'all been to Parkland Hospital in the last couple of years?
Yeah.
How long do you have to wait out in the lobby for the sorry?
No.
You know what they told me when I tried to take one of my roommates in there? Mr. Franks, it's gonna be 12 to 14 hours before she gets seen by a doctor.
If you're lucky.
If you ever want her to come to the Parkland Hospital, call an ambulance and have them bring her, because that way they get seen immediately. That's what, you know, my brain, you know, if somebody, I wanna call an ambulance to pick them up so they'll get seen by them. And so I know I've gotten off, I know. Oh my God. Well, I'm a narcotic alcoholic. But no, I didn't know this time. I'm gonna read this. Just know. I know I kind of got up a bit. I promise you. Narcotics Anonymous works. How and why? And I'm gonna say this, HI makes me say this, every group I go to. Where the guy that had the microphone in his hand was wrong and didn't know what he was talking about. When you get out of home bound, or out of your house for 90 days, go to group every day. Okay? And you know, I'm gonna tell you all this. How many of y'all have a cell phone that's gonna be active when you get out of treatment? You know what numbers you need to block off your phone number?
Adult man.
All your dope dealer homeboys out there in the hood. You guess what? The only time anyone call you is if you got $20 in your pocket. Okay? Or you'll give them a ride and you'll re-up. That's what we are. And I just know, man, I know I'm probably one of the goofiest speakers you ever heard in your life. The one thing I know, my higher power has established in me, I can look any inmate in the eye